Hi friends, welcome or welcome back. I'm Sean, the Moss Witch, your Moss Witch, your local Moss Witch. Today we are here to talk about the Salem Witchcraft and Folklore Festival and Salem in general, so buckle in. It's gonna be a good conversation. So I am a huge fan of Salem. Huge is an understatement. Gargantuan, Titanic, Jurassic. I've been going to Salem for about 10 years now, and it has just grown and flourished in such a beautiful, witchy, and also just like general wonderful way that I would recommend everybody visit. It's a town that has an energy you can't beat. Horrible history, terrifying history for people who are different and marginalized and don't act or seem or look like everybody else. And I think it's really interesting that we remain cognizant of the horrible history that this area has attached to it. Salem also has an incredible maritime history. It was a huge port from the very beginning of Massachusetts. It was a large port area. But you'll probably hear about the witchcraft, aren't you? Aren't you? It's fine, me too. So this year I had the distinct pleasure of attending the Salem Witchcraft and Folklore Festival, which was held in August of this year. Like I said, I've been exploring the Salem area for a really long time. This is the first time I got a chance to come together with our community members, our community leaders, and our voices to tend the witch flame, so to speak. And I think that means something different to everybody, but we were all there in this community roundtable mindset of resistance, of how do we take back our power? How in such a horrible time in both our country and our world, how do we remain present? How do we remain strong? And how do we hold each other up as community? Because we all like to talk about community as a buzzword, but really what it means is sacrifice and showing up for other people. How do we do that in a time where we can barely show up for ourselves? So that was the overall theme of Witch Fest for this year: resilience, resistance, and ritual in times of turmoil. And I think it was a good one. Witch Fest was held at the Hawthorne Hotel this year. It's a hotel right off of the Salem Commons, so it's a really pretty walk through the park. And it is one of the most haunted hotels in the area, from what I understand. I have been there a couple times. I've eaten there, I've gotten some drinks there, and I can tell you it is quite an active location. So it was really wonderful to be able to spend not only time with living community members, but also with the local dead, which is something that is really, really important to me personally in my own practice. That being said, it was also extremely exhausting. I have been dealing with a chronic illness lately and lots of flare-ups and lots of achiness. So it was a little bit difficult during a flare-up to be able to attend such an important event to me. So I really was trying to center comfort as much as I possibly could, so I didn't push myself to the absolute limit here. And I think that's an important lesson that I learned in attending events in person, is not only should we take care of ourselves when it comes to being constantly present online and how toxic that can be within our life, but taking care of our physical bodies and holistically looking after ourselves is just as important. Salem, just by itself, is so worth a visit. I absolutely adore Salem. There are several places throughout Salem that I really, really love. I do think the Hawthorne Hotel is worth a visit, even if you're just going for a quick cocktail or a mocktail. Even the park, the Salem Commons, it is such a nice, chill area to hang out. If you just need a break from the hustle and bustle of Salem, there are a lot of places to sit. There's a beautiful gazebo, and it was one of the filming locations of Hocus Pocus. The Salem Maritime Garden is one of my absolute favorite places as someone who works very, very intimately with plants and flora and the earth. It's just a stunning place. It's so peaceful. They have so many native plants popping up there, so many amazing trees as well. If you are into trees and tree spirits like I am, this is a great place to see a lot of beautiful red oaks. Same with the commons. But if you're walking down towards the harbor area, on the way to the Seven Gables house, actually, It is a great stop. It is behind one of the old colonial homes. I just really, really enjoyed sticking my face in all of the flowers and narrowly avoiding getting bees up my nose. Y'all know by now that I love bees and flowers and plants, so it really doesn't bother me that much, but it was bustling with pollinators, which is exactly what I like to see. Another must stop for me on the Salem tour past the witch house is the Ropes Mansion and Garden. This is the location where in Hocus Pocus, Allison was supposed to live. But it is a beautiful, beautiful historical colonial mansion, I believe. And the gardens are just unreal. It is one of my favorite places. It is the place that I beeline to first every time I go to Salem. And every time we visit, there are an overabundance of beautifully curated plants, native, cultivated species, cultivars. So if you are a nature girly like me and love your little spots of nature in cities, that is almost one of my favorite things about cities is the third places, the free third places. Parks and gardens and public gardens are just some of my absolute favorite things to explore because you never know what you're gonna find there. You never know what rare plants you're going to find there. So if you are heading to Salem, don't just walk Essex Street. Go to the maritime areas, go to the gardens, walk the whole town because it is so, so, so worth it. All right, time to chat Witch Fest. Okay, so my first class on Thursday was A Gallows Man is on Your Trail, Sending the Dead to the Front Lines with Megan St. Pierre. I hope I am pronouncing their name right. They are the curator of Kitchen Toad, the owner and curator and purveyor at Kitchen Toad. I absolutely love their shop. They are located in Canada. So please, throughout this whole tariffs nightmare, please continue to support their shop as well. We need to support our neighbors. Oh my God, what an amazing way to open Witch Fest, talking about the local dead and working with the local dead in ways that I never would have thought to do so. And not only did Megan discuss working with specific spirits or approaching specific spirits in your local cemeteries, but also the overall general spirit of the cemetery, working with the cemetery and those spirits generally. There's an approach to that, which when we initially think about approaching a cemetery and working with the local dead, it can be a little intimidating, right? It's like, well, which local dead am I gonna be working with? Am I gonna go to my great-grandmother's grave in the cemetery? Am I gonna pick a random grave and try and start a relationship? How do I get past the cemetery spirits? This class helped me so much to understand how to enter a cemetery or graveyard, how to be respectful in a cemetery and graveyard, what offerings to leave, and specific spirits in which to work with. And even once we establish a relationship with specific spirits, working with different dirts as well, I think is really important. We hear a lot about graveyard dirt or grave dirt, and it's a big buzzword, and I think it's something that, once again, the internet has taken out of context and not discussed holistically. So obviously, before we even approach a spirit with a shovel in our hand, we're going to approach a spirit as an ally and offer our allyship and make offerings. Get to know them. Have them get to know you. Get a yes or a no about whether or not we are actually going to be continuing our relationship in ritual work, in spiritual work. It's really important to be respectful of all players here, because not only are we speaking to a specific spirit, we might be speaking to the cemetery guardians. We got to make sure we get past them. This class was definitely very all-encompassing when it comes to calling the local dead to the front lines in order to help you in your work, especially in your resistance work. This, again, was through the lens of resistance rituals in times of turmoil. And you wouldn't think that the local dead would be able to show up for the woes of the living in the way that we had discussed it, but Megan blew it out of the water, honestly, and opened my mind up to so many ways in which I could approach, let's say, specific spirits. So if I am working within the legal system, which spirits am I going to approach? Lawyers, judges, things like that. Working within the political spectrum, approaching spirits of politicians, approaching spirits of activists. There's so many ways in which we can work through the lens of resistance with the local dead. One of my favorite tidbits that Megan gave us was the ways in which we can keep our local politicians accountable. And I'll leave it at that, but we did discuss working with certain types of spirits when it comes to reminding our politicians who they work for. Spirits of the lost children were mentioned. Again, spirits of activists. I really am going to start exploring working with the spirits of the lost children. In my local cemetery, there actually is a missing and murdered woman spirit who was recently just identified. It was a huge win for our community that we finally were able to identify this missing and murdered woman. We believe that we identified her killers as well, who already happened to be in prison serving sentences. So again, huge win, huge happy moment for our local community. That may be a spirit to approach for social issues or political issues, you know. Thinking outside of the box when it comes to how can we approach local spirits within the spectrum of our community issues, because let's not forget, these local spirits of people who lived their entire lives in our community are going to be concerned about community issues. So that was something that I came away from that class smiling ear to ear, because I had never thought of approaching them for those specific concerns. I'm really grateful to Megan for coming all the way down here and teaching this class and bringing us some beautiful insights. They called it a primer, but I think it was a lot more comprehensive than a primer, so loved that class. So there were 3 classes a day. Each class was about an hour to 2 hours long. So the next class that I attended on Thursday was Curse and Catharsis, a ritual inspired by Romani resistance with Jasmina Von Thiel and Victor Paches. This class was also a joy. The whole Witch Fest started out amazingly because I got to start out with such wonderful, beautiful classes. I got to be in class with folks that I knew socially from our online witchcraft community, but I had never gotten to have a chance to meet them in person. Starting with Megan's class was a blessing, and then Jasmina's class was such a beautiful follow-up to that energy. So I really, really loved this class because I'm very interested in curse work across community, across cultures, and I also wanted to learn as much as I can about the Romani or Roma people. I don't think in our Western society we're taught and educated enough about them, and a lot of that education we have to go seek out on our own. It's frustrating because they are a very deeply interesting social group of people. They're an entire culture unto their own. Wrapped up in that, the traveling culture is something that we don't often get to hear a lot about because there's so much movement in that. So I really wanted to take this class to be able to learn more about that culture specifically and how they approach their curse and blessing work. So we were able to learn so much about the genocide of the Romani people, and that is a huge event in their culture. So there is a lot of mourning that is observed through the diasporic lens of those people. We learned about the magic of the flamenco music. We learned about the dances. We learned about forced nomadism and survival trades. And one of those survival trades, of course, is going to be spiritual. Fortune telling is something that the Roma people have provided their community members for centuries. And there are very specific spiritual adherences that they have. Their spirituality centers a lot around purification and cleanliness. I have down here, resistance magic has long been the work of the oppressed to seek justice. And I think that is not only such a beautiful sentiment for the time that we are in right now, like I said, not only in this country, but also across the world. But we also have to remember that these oppressed, diasporic, nomadic groups, or these diasporic groups that come from slavery, that come from genocide, forced migration, we are going to see retributive magic as a big cornerstone in their work because it is one of the only ways that they can fight back. It rebalances the scales, so to speak. I would say if you want to learn more about Roma culture and Roma spirituality, you should check out Jasmina Von Thiel's book. I think that she is a beautiful, beautiful person inside and out. She's very, very friendly, very, very knowledgeable, and she's wonderfully captivating. And please check out her book. I would also say that if you had any questions about the culture, contact her. And I did forget to mention in the beginning that I believe all of these classes are available for purchase as well. I would recommend any of them. If you are interested in just experiencing Witchfest, or if you have a specific interest in a topic, please go support this festival so we can continue to have it every year. And your support of this festival also supports these teachers. So half of this class was an informational guidance on the culture, the background, the spirituality. But we also did a group curse together, which was so cathartic, and it opened up like this stream of energy for me. It felt like something, like a dam broke loose, and all this energy just flooded out of me. And I think that was the general consensus around the room for sure. So we all got up, we all got into a circle, and we were told to write down what was on our minds, that was weighing heavy on our minds, that was making us angry, that was making us feel trapped, that was making us feel not ourselves and blocked. We all wrote down what we wanted to happen as a result of this. And I could see, I wrote a whole page. I could see a lot of people wrote a whole page. There was a lot of big letters. There was a lot of drawings. Everybody took their own really, really interesting approach to it. So what we did was we took our pieces of paper that we had written our curses on, and we put them on the floor, and we started stomping on them and ripping at them. And we couldn't spit at them because we were in a hotel, but I think a lot of us wanted to. Some people even got on the floor and started punching their papers, and there was a lot of yelling. There was a lot of noise making. And I think it was one of the first moments that a lot of us had been able to unleash a lot of our pent-up anger and our aggression and our feelings of being stomped on. We were stomping back. So essentially, we were balancing the scales. Now, a lot of this had to do with the state of the world. Some people wrote about personal things, other people wrote about general things. Overall, it was wonderful. It was cathartic. And after we got all of that out and our papers were in a mess on the floor, and after actually Jasmina had walked around and put a cursing oil that she had made herself on every single paper, we discussed how we wanted to heal. How we wanted to heal the world, how we wanted to heal each other, what good and positive and actionable energy we wanted to bring in to take up the room and the space of the negative and hateful energy we had just chased out. It was such a wonderful way to end the class because we were all there in a shared purpose of resistance and retributive magic. We weren't there out of petty reasons. We weren't there because we were mad at our friend, right? We weren't there because we wanted to get back at our neighbor. No, we were there for bigger reasons, and it joined us all. And at the end, we all agreed and all offered a beautiful way forward. And I think that's the point of events like this, right? The point here is, yeah, take them down, but what are we going to put up in its place? How are we going to fix things when we dismantle structures of oppression? It was beautiful. Last class of the day was the Green Path Beyond Botany for the Folk Magic Practitioner with Rebecca Beyer. Talk about a girl crush. I love Rebecca Beyer so much. I'm a huge fan of her work. She is the author of Wild Witchcraft, Mountain Magic, and she's coming out with a folk herbal very soon as well, which I'm supremely excited about. So Rebecca is an Appalachian folk witch based in North Carolina, I believe, but we learned that she's really from all over the East Coast, which is so cool. She did some of her training here in New Jersey, and I did approach her after the class and we chatted a little bit, and I told her where I was from, and she knew exactly where I was from. So that was something that was really cool, to meet one of your idols and to have them respond so positively to you is, I a dream, right? And I would definitely call Rebecca one of my idols. So the class overall was incredible. We did discuss a lot of botany basics, but I think too, what I really came away from it with was the fact that you don't need to have an herbal degree or have herbal, like official herbalism training. You don't need to be able to speak Latin to approach the plants, right? You don't need to be this heavily trained academic individual to be able to work with plants. I would always recommend people do research on plants that they want to work with, just to make sure that you're being safe. Never put a plant in your mouth that you cannot identify or you're not 99.99999% sure is safe. But the point of Rebecca's class was that anyone can approach the plants. Anyone can cook. Rapitude. Now, in the spirit of resistance, of course, we talked about poison plants. And Rebecca really broke aspects of poison, like why do we become poisoned by plants? What are the compounds that essentially are the poisonous aspects of plants? She broke it down beautifully. A natural teacher, and I really, really appreciate the level of patience and the level of time that she took explaining everything. We talked a lot about Datura, we talked a lot about the nightshade families. I learned a lot more about woody nightshade than I thought I was going to, and black nightshade, which isn't actually poisonous. So that was super cool to be able to learn about these different types of nightshade family members that we would have typically considered to be problematic, but that we can work with in a way that is approachable to people that are a little bit intimidated by poison plants. So that's really cool. I did also take Rebecca's plant walk the next day, and that was even more immersive and beautiful. We walked around Salem and we found all of these incredible, incredible plants to talk about just between the cracks in the sidewalks. We found woody nightshade under a tree in the cemetery. We also were able to introduce ourselves to so many trees, so many beautiful species of trees. My favorites, I think, were the oaks. I really, really love the oaks. We also found a hawthorn tree. I don't think I've ever been able to recognize a hawthorn tree in a city. So that was a really special moment. We talked about the folklore of these plants and why they are important in certain cultures. And it was just such a positive experience. Rebecca is such a light to this community. Please, please, please check out her work. She is also Blood and Spice Bush on Instagram. So worth a follow. She shares so much good information, so much free information too. So please check her out. I'm a huge Rebecca fan. Okay, this brings us to Friday, and my first class of the day was Sigils and Magical Resistance with Laura Tempest Sarcroft. Now, you may recognize that name. Laura Tempest Sarcroft is a prolific writer, wonderful artist, wonderful sigil artist, and a wonderful traditional artist as well. I was able to pick up one of her prints at the night market, so that was really, really special. But this class was so much fun. We were able to create a sigil together. It ended up being a future focused sigil. So I think what I really, really enjoyed most about this class was Laura walking us through her approach to sigil making. I'm gonna show you one of the sigils that she showed us. Actually, there's two there, the power sigil and the ice sigil for protection against ice, which is I think what we all need. We all need to put these on the bottom of our shoes right now. My favorite part of this class was learning Laura's approach. I've been a fan of Laura for a while. I've read their book, Sigil Witchery. That was one of the first books I read on this topic, so that was really, really important for me as a young practitioner to start to learn what approaches are out there. I think a lot of us are familiar with the alphabet approach where you lay out the alphabet and then you lay out the word that you want to use, essentially what you want to turn into a sigil, and you remove the vowels and the duplicates, and then you line it up to whatever letters that you use to numbers, and then you do a little clock, or you draw your sigil within the clock, and it ends up being a lot of different lines, and then you can add arrows, you can add dots. I do see that a lot. I like that approach. I use that approach a lot. But I also have been complexifying my own sigil making with the Ogham alphabet, the ancient Irish alphabet of trees. That's the usual approach that I take now to making a sigil, but I do still utilize that other method. However, Laura's method was basically breaking down the concept of her goal for her sigil into symbols of power that make the most sense for her. And we were able to do that through the Future Focus sigil. We all pulled our knowledge of sigils that made the most sense for certain things. For example, we had things down here like building resilience, dismantling, undermining, replacing systems of oppression, empowering and uplifting the oppressed, heart connection, empathy, all things we wanted to incorporate into the sigil for Future Focus. And I'll put the sigil right here that we ended up coming up with. Ended up being such a beautiful group activity, just like the curse and catharsis, where we all got together and we all twisted a curse, but then we all brought in something positive. This was also a wonderful way of recognizing our resistance, rebalancing the scales together, and then putting together and putting out something that would help and support the community. Okay, next class was A Little Crooked House, Occult Magic and Nursery Rhymes with Corey Thomas Hutchison. I love Corey Thomas Hutchison. I'm a big fan of his book. Okay, I got both of his books here. We've got North American Folk Magic, which is his anthology book, and then his original book, which is New World Witchery, a trove of North American folk magic. I love this author so much, so I was thrilled to be able to be put into his class. I didn't originally pick his class, so that was a treat. I'd actually picked Albert Bjorn's class, but it appears that Albert Bjorn wasn't able to make it, and I believe he was teaching a class on Icelandic folk magic, which was a shame. I was disappointed I wasn't able to attend his class, but being put into Corey's class was such a blessing in disguise, and I didn't know that Corey was teaching, so I was super thrilled. This specific class was obviously about analyzing nursery rhymes for the secret occult themes within them, which I think if anybody has ever read a nursery rhyme or a fairy tale, you're always going to find some kind of magical element. We talked a lot about Mother Goose specifically, and how she is a character that essentially magically helps children. And we see a couple of those characters in other nursery rhymes like Frau Holle and Frau Perkta, both in Germanic stories. We also learned a lot about Pater Nostros, I believe. I'll put the word up on the screen. But these were essentially our fathers. They were prayers that were anglicized because the majority of people that were receiving Mass, especially Catholic folks, in Latin didn't speak Latin, so they didn't understand what they were actually praying to. When they took back these prayers to be able to protect themselves. So there was the white Pater Nostros and the black Pater Nostros. So the white would have been prayers done during the day, and then the black would have been a more protective prayer done at night. These people wanted to be able to connect with their religious practice in a way that made sense to them, and as native English speakers, or in whatever native tongue that they spoke, they wanted to be able to pray to God or the saints directly. And through Latin, you need an intermediary, you need someone who speaks Latin, you need a priest. So of course, the church didn't approve of this, so they kind of became folk magical spells. But a lot of these prayers ended up being worked into nursery rhymes. So one of them, for example, I see the moon and the moon sees me. God bless the moon and God bless me. So that had different variations throughout the years, but a little rhyme that you could remember, but also have your watcher in the sky at your back, keeping you safe. Okay, next class was Beyond the Servitor on crafting of spirits and conjuring fetches with Matthew Venus. Now, I believe Matthew is one of the organizers of the Salem Witch Fest and is a Salem witch himself, so I really appreciated being able to hear directly from him as well, and it was a lovely and informative class. It was so much information, and I think my hand almost broke in half because of how fast I was writing. I'm gonna try and make this as simple as possible because I have so many notes on this and it's a really complex topic. So in this class, we discussed creation magic, essentially taking an item and imbuing it with spirit and then working with that spirit as a tool, as a partner, to be able to direct it to accomplish work for you. This approach is an animistic approach. This is an approach through which we are looking at anything, a rock, a tree, a plant, a book. Everything and anything has a spirit through the lens of animism. All things possess a unique or individual expression of spirit, which is a quote from Sir Edward Tyler. So in this class, Matthew walked us through his approach to inspirited items, something crafted or artificial that can be made into a magical tool. We talked a lot about momets, which is an antiquated Middle English term for idolatry or false gods, but it is used most often to describe an effigy, a puppet, or a doll. We talked a lot about inspirited work, imbuing spirit. We talked a lot about materia magica and using those items as fueling pieces, as building pieces for this item. Because each and every bit of materia magica has its own spirit and its own energy. So that contributes to the overall spirit and energy of the item. When you build an inspirited item, you can use almost anything. You could use natural materials like animal bones or animal parts. You can use plants. You can use plastic, man-made items. As long as we are approaching this item with respect, through permission seeking, and if we are caring for it, it is going to work in a way that is autonomous. Here's a quote from the class: "Giving physicality to something that doesn't have a form to do work in this realm with us." So you can really build it any way you want to and ensoul it any way that you want to. And I believe Matthew is writing a book about this topic. It is called Ensouling the Effigy. I will be picking this book up. I recommend, if you are interested in working with inspirited objects, you pick this book up too. But overall, I think it was a great primer. I think it was very helpful to building inspirited items of power that can support you through your work. If you give it a purpose, if you breathe life into it, if you give it autonomy, and you also give it respect and you care for it. I think there's a lot that goes into this. I feel like I'm not positioned well enough to speak on this since I've only ever taken one class on this, and I'm really a beginner at working with ensouled items. If anyone is interested, they should approach Matthew Venus about this. I hope to educate myself further on this topic, so I think it was a fantastic primer and I really enjoyed it. Next class, Magic Against Control, the liberatory use of ancient magics of chaos and destruction with Cadmus. This class was a joy. I really loved taking a class with Cadmus. He's brilliant. He is a professor, he is a practicing occultist, and he takes a Hellenistic approach. We did talk a lot about utilizing the ancient magics of chaos through a Hellenistic and classical lens. And I really enjoyed it because I love classical literature. I would say that we looked particularly at the Homeric hymns, which began in the oral traditions. Another writer that was discussed pretty widely was Hesiod and his theogony. So when we talk about chaos, we're talking about a force of change and creation, especially within Greek myth. We're talking about the problem of change. The major point of this class was that magic comes from conflict with the gods. So anytime, at any point that we're seeing major conflicts with the gods, we often see humans get the upper hand. We see this with the Trojan War. We see all the gods feuding with the Trojan War, and oftentimes that helps or hurts humanity. One of my favorite examples of this is the Promethean story and legend, where Prometheus from Mount Olympus steals fire and brings it down to these lumpy clay-made life forms, humans, and gives them fire, gives them power, gives them change, gives them autonomy over their own futures through giving them this element, and Zeus didn't like that. I can't exactly remember if Prometheus also shaped the humans out of clay or if Zeus shaped the humans out of clay, but Zeus did not agree with the humans getting fire because he did not will it. Prometheus went rogue and stole it and brought it to them on his own. Prometheus's punishment was to be chained to a boulder and have a gigantic eagle eat his liver every single day. So as far as we know, Prometheus is still chained to that boulder, getting his liver feasted on by an eagle. Tough break. But overall, from that story, from Prometheus' sacrifice, humans get fire. Humans get life, essentially. I think it's an allegory for life as well. So from that conflict between Prometheus and Zeus, do we get humans getting the upper hand? Here's a nice quote from this class. Conflicts amongst the gods translates into political solutions. Basically, what he was suggesting through this exploration of a multitude of different myths in which chaos is positioned for a human win, we use this chaos to win in our current situations. I think I'm on to the last class of the entire Witch Fest and the last day, which was The Bane and Blessings of Italian-American Folk Magic, Exploring Communal Protection, Curses, and Justice with Frankie Castanea, aka Chaotic Witch Aunt, is a wonderful human being. I love them very much. I have been watching their YouTube for a very long time. I am sure you have as well. If not, please go check them out at Chaotic Witch Aunt. I thought this class was incredible. I really appreciated another folk practitioner's approach to Bane and Blessings. I'm sure at this point you are thinking, Sean, why would you attend an Italian-American class on this topic when you are not, in fact, Italian-American? Well, that is because I think there are a lot of similarities in a lot of the diaspora cultures that we see coming to the US and making a neighborhood, making a home, making a place of this land. We see a lot of similarities in the immigration patterns. We see a lot of similarities in the way that these people were treated. I have personally seen a lot of similarities in the folk magics of Italian Americans and Irish Americans. That being said, there's also a lot of differences. So I like Frankie. I think they're a great community voice and a community teacher, and I knew I was going to get a lot out of this class. And I did. So we talked a lot about regionality, bioregion, lineage, traditions. All of these are very important in this specific cultural approach. There was a lot of emphasis on close-knit communities and keeping culture alive through traditions and through these very specific practices, which I think is just so beautiful. There's a lot that was also lost due to assimilation, and a lot that was adapted and changed. Some things you can't get here and in America that you can get in Italy, that you can get in Ireland. So a lot of these old recipes and approaches and traditions had to be changed and adapted just as the diaspora culture changed and adapted, which really cool. We talked a lot about what is justified work. What is communal protection? Where are the lines in the sand? It's really important to ensure that the work that you are doing is reasonable, is justified, and how do we do that? Just as this class was a discussion of cursing, like many of the classes at Salem Witch Fest, this class was also a discussion about curing. Curative formulas in Italian-American groups, and I believe from what Frankie was discussing in Italy as well, were passed down through family, through generational lines, and this is very similar to how it is in Ireland as well. I really love the discussion of food as a healing work and a healing approach. From Frankie's discussion in Italian-American folk culture and folk magics, food is life healing. Food is lifeblood. Food is curative. And I think that's really interesting in that it majorly differs from the culture of my ancestors, where we had essentially a long history of starvation. So these people couldn't get the food that they need, the sustenance that they needed. So I don't see a lot of food work being discussed in Irish American and Irish culture beyond famine trauma. And I think it's super interesting that we do have a diaspora group that we can look to. And I know many, like this is, it's not a monolith, but in this specific diaspora group, food is something that was used to bring community together, to heal community, to form a sort of protection in a way, which I think is like a really nice, interesting approach. And I think this is also something that is within American culture as well. Because we are a salad bowl, multicultural nation, we do have traditions of sharing food cultures and food culture crossover, which is really, really beautiful. We do have specific gatherings dedicated to food. Food is a medicine prepared for those who are ill. And it's not only the act of feeding someone to help that person, it's also the respect for the ingredients. And in this specific culture, there are many food ingredients that double as ingredients of folk magical protection as well. Garlic being a very good example. I think one of the things that I took away the most from this specific talk was, the discussion of the justifications of cursing. There is no reality, there is no world where we are not harboring ill will for some sort of oppression. If the disenfranchised and marginalized groups are being stepped on, there is going to be some kind of retribution. It's just balance. Again, we're talking about balancing these scales in every situation. This talk really took a deep dive on what are the ethics of retributive magic, really ensuring that this is something that we are willing to step into, because there's always going to be a price that is paid. I think these days, when you're protecting someone, when you're stepping in front of an oppressor between them and the person that they're looking to oppress, or when you are doing these works of community support, the justification is to ensure homeostasis. It's to ensure that people remain safe and well and protected. And I think keeping that's the foundation, right? Throughout all of these classes, that was the foundational discussion, is protecting people and fighting back. But Frankie did a really good job of discussing the need for us to pause and really think it through. I think a lot of us that have been in this witchcraft world for a little while have had their own backs thrown out by the work that they've done. And whether or not we're talking about cursing or even just doing a lot of heavy work and being burnt out by it, I think we all come to understand that we really need to think about the things that we do. We really need to put thought into things. We can't just throw out a spell and think of it like a tennis ball hitting a wall. We have to put action behind it. And I think this class was wonderful in really pushing us and putting pressure on us to think things through, making it a very serious discussion. And I really appreciated that, because when people are new to this world, I don't think the gravity of doing this work, doing this deep spiritual and heavy lifting, is really something that's discussed enough. Overall, there was so much that was wrapped up in this talk, and I'm really just talking about the broad strokes here. So if you are interested in learning from Frankie directly, I would highly recommend buying this class, taking one of their other classes. They teach prolifically, and everything I've ever taken with them has been totally and completely worth it, and their prices are really good. I would say go support Chaotic Witchant. They have a book out already, Spells for Change. They're coming out with another book. It's called Ancestral Magic, I believe. And I think it's going to be a big worth a buy, especially for those folks who are looking to reconnect. Overall, I thought this class was really valuable for looking again at a diasporic approach to cursing, the ethics of cursing, and the weight of curing, and how those approaches can really go hand in hand. I thought the Salem Witchcraft and Folklore Fest was so worth it, not only to be able to visit Salem, but also, can you see that? To tend the witch flame. Truly, I think we as a community need to make an effort to gather in person. I know it's difficult, but events like these are really worth going to, because you really get to meet people and talk to them and connect with them on an emotional level that you don't get online. I hope you enjoyed my talk about my classes. I loved my classes, and I can't wait to watch the other classes that I missed. And I hope you check out some of these classes as well, or check out some of these teachers separately. they are all incredible. And I cannot wait to visit the Salem Witchcraft and Folklore Festival again next year. It was one of the best trips of my life. Let's talk about the haul. The haul. So, as I said, I love Salem. I always take the opportunity to support the small businesses there when I am visiting, and there are just like an overabundance of beautiful shops there. So one of those shops, I'm gonna start off strong, is the Cauldron Black. The Cauldron Black is a purveyor of beautiful folk magical goods, and I can always go in there and find something that is useful to my practice. So when I was at the Cauldron Black, by the way, is down near the harbor, so it is not on like the immediate Essex Street area. It's like a 5-minute walk down to the harbor, but it's a beautiful walk and I think it's well worth it. So when I was in Cauldron Black, I found a book I really, really wanted to read. This is Financial Sorcery by Jason Miller. If you've been here long enough, you probably will have heard me talk about Jason Miller. He is one of my favorite witchcraft writers. One of his greatest books is on protection magic. I think it is a classic pickup for anybody either starting their craft or that want a refresher. There's also a book by him called Consorting with Spirits that I think is a great primer for spirit work. This, however, I'm very interested in because your girl is broke. So I definitely am hoping to boost my financial sorcery game. I am very excited to read this. Super excited about these pickups. These are like saint cards, I think. Yeah, let's just call them portable saint cards because they're of course not your traditional saint card, but they're like little wooden, they're not metals, but they're like little wooden portable saints that you can take with you. This is Bridget of Kildare. She is, I would say, probably the patron saint of my family, honestly. Bridget of Kildare is the saint iteration of the goddess Bridget, the fertility goddess, the goddess of the land of Ireland, sovereign goddess of Ireland. Bridget of Kildare, the Saint Bridget, is how, in my opinion, the goddess Bridget survived, but that is subjective. Bridget is a saint and goddess of healing, so I like to petition Saint Bridget for any kind of healing work that I do. She's also a craft worker, she's a fire keeper, she's also associated with a multitude of healing wells throughout Ireland. I work with Saint Bridget a lot when it comes to healing work that I'm doing for my family specifically within ancestral traditions. So I did pick up two because I want to enchant one for my grandmother's room at her nursing home. So I'm very excited about that. I talked about Laura Tempest Sarkoff in their capacity as a sigil witch. I did mention they are also a fantastic artist. So this is a pickup I grabbed from them. I don't remember what the name of this piece is. I think it might be Love Tail Root, Love Lake Root, I'm not really sure, but something to do with love. I just fell in love with it. I thought it was gorgeous. I thought it was almost a beautiful take potentially on a reversal of the Three of Swords, which is the card with the three swords in the heart, and it's like the betrayal card, but reversed, it is a recovery card in the tarot. And I don't know, I remember speaking to them and them telling me that at their stand, this has to do with growing love in an area that you need. And I don't know, I just thought it was beautiful. I think like we all need to grow more love in our lives, even if it's love for ourselves, even if it's love for where we are. I thought it was so pretty. Okay, I did also visit Spiritus Arcanium, I think. So when I was attending this market, the Mercatio della Strega, I hope that's how you pronounce it. It was in the area of Peabody where the Spiritus Arcanium was located, which is Matthew Venus's shop, who is one of the Salem Witchcraft and Folklore Fest organizers. So anyway, had to visit a shop, did pick up a couple books that I'm hyped about, but I also found this beautiful tiny hagstone there. I also found snake skin there, and I'm not sure where I put it. I'll put in some B-roll if I can find it. I love snake skin for use in transformation magic and renewal. I love a hagstone. I love having hagstones on me if I can. Putting them in charm bags or just hanging them from my clothing on a string or just from various parts of the house in doorways. Really love a hagstone, so I thought this was super cute. And real quickly, I'm gonna show some of the books that I picked up as well. This book I picked up at Pentagram, which is a bookshop right across from the old burying point. I believe it's the Charter Street Cemetery in Salem. I was really excited about that because I do have some British ancestry as well. To the Irish woman within me's great disbelief. My mother does have some Cornish blood, so while I also love reading specifically about the Cornish subculture, I wanted to see what traditional British folk magic looks like as well, because we're here to learn, right? Last couple book pickups. This is from one of my absolute favorite shops in Salem. This is from the Coven's Cottage. That place is just, it's right on Essex Street. It is consistently one of my favorite places in the world. And I have to give them props because I went in and asked about the Irish peat moss that they were selling that I did not see on display. I had been able to get a huge brick of Irish peat to be able to burn as like incense, which would have been traditionally used to heat Irish households. And they said they did not have any in stock, but then they disappeared into the back after they had very mysteriously said, "We were waiting for you." And I was like, okay, what? And they come out with a brick of peat and they said, "We found this the other day and said we're going to give it to the first person that remembered that we'd sell Irish peat when we have it restocked. So this is a gift from us." So I got myself some more Irish peat that I will be literally treasuring for however long it takes to find a standard Irish peat supplier. But I was able to pick up this book. This is The Medicinal Plants and Folk Tradition and Ethnobotany of Britain and Ireland. And obviously, I want to learn more about plants from Ireland and the UK, which is a big part of my ancestry. So I'm excited. Okay, last but not least with the books, I wanted to shout Corey Thomas Hutchison out again because he's just a wonderful king and I love him so much. He and I had a fantastic conversation after the class and he gave me some of his zines for free. So this is Ephemera or Magical Scribblings Lost and Found. So I'm excited to check that one out. This one is Being a Magical Melange of Thread, Blood, and Sorcery, and Mangia Magica, Gustatory and Flavorful Folk Magic. I hope I pronounced everything right there, but it was so lovely because he signed everything for me as well. I wish I could have brought my gigantic folk magical books for him to sign, but I will just have to catch him somewhere else. Okay, real quick, last but certainly not least, y'all know I love my ritual oils, so I had to pick up some oils from these people that I love. Justified by the Death Witch and Chaotic Witch Aunt. They did a collaboration that I'm very, very pumped about. It smells amazing. I love it. It's so botanical. Like, it's botanical and camphorous, and I love it. Again, it is called Justified. It's for justice work, and I will be using this a lot. Have to shout out Chaotic Witch Aunt whenever I possibly can. I'm very excited to use Our Lady Untar of Knots in everything that I do. I've literally been putting it on every day and asking for my obstacles to be burst open and my roads to be open, and in every way, this oil has been coming through for me. So already, even just over the past few days, I can see it working super well. So love Chaotic Witch Aunt's oils very much. And my sweet friend Mandy from Hearth and Hedge made her own ancestral veneration oil. It's so beautiful. I've already used it a couple times on my ancestor candle, and these spirits have responded very well to it. I love the sentiment of having a cardinal as your ancestral symbol here. It's certainly very relevant in my own family lore. and lineage work. We certainly have a cardinal that we feel is the visitation of our grandparents coming back to check on the property. So yeah, I love this. It smells so good. It's such a powerful oil. I can tell it was made with so much love. So this one is very, very close to my heart. That is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed. I hope now you are very excited for the next Salem Witch Fest and that you will be signing up online or in person and that we will meet there. And yeah, I hope that you get to Salem very, very soon. Or if you aren't able to go, that this video has given you some beautiful inspiration and helped you explore Salem digitally. I love you guys. I hope that you have a wonderful start to your fall and that you stay well. Slán go fóill.